Hello, welcome to The Moment. This episode, I'll be talking to the co-founder of a Cumbrian business which has created an interesting solution to the country's road maintenance problems. And it's a solution that also reduces the amount of waste plastics in landfill, as well as the carbon emissions of bitumen. For some context, potholes have become a huge problem on our roads. In November, it was estimated that Newcastle City Council alone would have to spend $116 million on repairs to the city's roads and paths. This figure seems a lot, but it gets more so when you consider that the actual new council budget for 2018 to 19 in the category of highway maintenance and operations is only $6.94 million. And that budget figure, of course, won't just be going on pothole repairs alone. Northumberland County Council, since 2016, has employed the use of what's known as jet patchers, which are wagons with all the necessary equipment to repair a pothole in one go. The basic operation for such a machine is that they would spray the pothole with an asphalt emulsion and then fill it with emulsion-coated aggregate before sealing it in. However, these repairs are only semi-permanent and won't be a long-term solution. The problem here is due to repeated temperature changes causing fractures and cracks in the road surfaces and how to deal with that. But now a new company called Macreba believes that they found a way to repair potholes using waste plastic as part of the surface. Their process doesn't do away with asphalt, but it creates a new binding material that incorporates plastic. So I spoke to Toby McCartney, the CEO and co-founder of Macreba, to find out about the idea, and I started by asking how Macreba got started.
It really started because I've always worked for myself, and I always come up with crazy ideas. Many of them haven't worked before, Macreba being slightly different. I was at my daughter's school assembly, and the teachers had asked us to do a bit of research into what basically lives in our oceans. So my youngest had been onto Google and had found out what lives in our oceans, and then it came to the school assembly, and the teacher asked all of the children, kids, what lives in our oceans, and one little girl put her hand up and she said, well, fish, and a little boy put his hand up and he said, turtles. And then my little girl put her hand up and she said, well, plastics, they live in our oceans. And the teacher sort of took a step back and it wasn't quite the answer she was looking for. So she moved on. But, it got me thinking really that actually my little girl was as correct as the others, as in it's expected that there'll be more plastics in our oceans than fish themselves. And I decided in that moment that I wanted to do something about it, to change it. On the other side, there was we've got a huge number of problems with the quality of the roads that we have in our area, and I've been looking for solutions for that, really because of pressure from my mother-in-law to do something about it, to be honest. And I remembered something that I'd seen in India when I was there, that they also have a pothole problem, and what they were doing is taking waste plastics and other rubbish from landfill sites, sticking it into potholes, pouring diesel all over it, lighting it, and then all the stuff was melting down to kind of form a seal in the hole. And I thought, well, that's what I'll do. I'll take the waste plastics that we have from our household, and I'll put them into the potholes. I'll pour diesel over them and melt them down. But the council around here, they sort of frown upon us doing things like that. So I had to think again, and I got together with a couple of my mates, and I said, listen, I've got this crazy idea. What if we were to fill all the potholes in our area with waste plastics? I know there's a lot of waste plastics. It's a big problem for the world. What if we were to use them to fill the holes? And we spent a year of just really research and development and different testing, and after that year we came up with our first solution called MR6, Macreba's MR6, which was designed around making a road stronger. giving it a higher tensile strength. And we sent our mixes of different asphalts and plastics down to a laboratory in Wales, and they did some tests, and it just turned out that yes, it performed far better than average asphalt. So we knew we were onto something. Now we've developed three products, and those three products all do different things to very different designs of roads. So you get your sort of motorways versus your A and B roads, to your private drives, to your car parks, etc., or airports, or there's lots of different types of asphalt and lots of different designs of roads. And our products are all made from waste plastic, but they go in as like a cake mix into the asphalt, and they actually now replace part of the bitumen. So that's the oil, the fossil fuel, if you like, that goes into a road. They replace part of that, and they perform, as I say, much better than the bitumen itself. So we're using up a waste to add into asphalt to replace the bitumen. The concept's really still very simple, but the science behind it is quite complex.
Yeah, so how does the process in general work? I mean, how do you take the plastics and sort of mix it with the asphalt?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's a major difference. So most people see plastics as, they see a plastic bottle as a plastic bottle. The challenge that we have around the world with recycling is that isn't just a plastic bottle that we look at. That's four different types of plastic, or four different polymers that go into that one plastic bottle. So the lid is a different polymer, a different plastic to the bottle itself, which is a different plastic to the wrap that goes around it, which is a different plastic to the ring pull kind of thing that you have on the lid. And so you can't just take that and melt it and then form a new plastic bottle, because different polymers react differently when you add them together. So what we've been able to do is separate all of those polymers out, and there's hundreds of different plastics out there. The first one that people have maybe heard of was Bakelite. That was the first polymer, the first plastic that was produced commercially anyway. But now we have hundreds of them, and they make up the bulk of our household waste and a lot of commercial waste. And we basically take that waste, we separate it all out, we obviously clean it, and then we either put it into a pellet, so a small pellet, or into a flake. And those pellets and those flakes are then added into asphalt in the normal way that asphalt would be made. So the asphalt manufacturers add it in like they do aggregates or stone, or sand, or bitumen. So there's no changes to any infrastructure for anyone that's making it. So it's nice and easy.
So how much of the final formula would you say the plastic accounts for?
Well, it's interesting to talk about volume, because everything in the roads business is really worked out by weight, so by tonnage. We've worked out that there's a road in Carlisle in Cumbria, the main road leading into Carlisle from Scotland. So it's called the Scotland Road, and it's to look at. It's about 400 meters in distance by about 20 meters, let's say, in width. Now we worked out that within that road we used up 500,000 waste plastic bottles and 888,000 one-time use plastic bags within our mix. So there's lots of other polymers that go into the mix, but that gives you an idea of the amount of plastic that we use. Of course, when we put that into tonnage, it doesn't sound like a great deal. It might be 3 or 5 tons of waste plastic.
Yeah.
But 3 or 4, 5, or 5 tons of plastic is a large amount to look at. It's a big pile.
Yeah. So when did you first trial the product?
I think the first road that I know the first road that went down was actually my road that sits outside of my house, and that's now been down. Will be 3 years this year. So 3 years since the first drive went down, and then from there we went on and we have some of our asphalt down on Carlisle Airport, in truck service stations, a lot of private work, and then Cumbria County Council were the first council on board, who took it on and put it down on their A and their B roads. And then from there it went into Dumfries and Dumfries and Galloway, and we've now got 6 or 7 different counties around the UK that now have our roads down on their road. And from there we went off, and we're now down. The first road went down just last year in Bahrain and the GCC countries, and over in the States and Moscow and Russia and all sorts of different places now are trialing our product. So it's grown very quickly.
Yeah, so you're trying to sort of reach out globally then. That's quite good.
Yeah, well, some of our products, MR6 is that gives the higher tensile strength. What it does basically is it's great for higher temperatures. So where we've got like places like Bahrain where it gets very, very hot, it's a fantastic product. As in, what it does is it stops the asphalt or the bitumen in the asphalt from melting quite as readily as traditional bitumen would do. And then we've got a product called MR10, which makes the road much more flexible, which is great for places like Scotland or over in Canada where we have, or even north of England where we get freezing conditions. Like as I look out of the window now, where it's completely white, and the asphalt underneath that white will be the water that's stored in it will be frozen. Now, as water freezes, as we know from science at school, it expands, and then we get cracking in the road. And what our product does is it goes in to help stop that cracking, and therefore reduces the potholes.
So you said that it's outperforms asphalt. I think the marketing says by 60%. How exactly is that?
Yeah, that's our original testing with, as I say, our product MR6, which was the one that gives strength. Our tensile strength results were coming out at 60% stronger than a control sample. So all of our tests, they have to be, it's called UCAS accredited. So it's in order to meet the British and European standards. And the test results came back, and that particular product was 60% stronger than the control that we used, which was far stronger than the British standard said that it had to be, which was fantastic. It's great. It's great with fuel resistance. If you drop fuel onto asphalt, it starts to erode the asphalt. Whereas our results we're getting, it's much better with fuel resistance. So if you drop fuel on it, it doesn't erode quite as readily as a normal asphalt might do. So if you're going into a truck service station or a petrol station and you're using asphalt, it's great to have our stuff in it.
I have seen some concerns that some of the plastic could wear out, like the pebbles from regular roads, and that could end up back in the sea. Is that something that you've considered?
Oh, absolutely. It's very important to us that doesn't happen, of course, because then we are a green company, if you like, and everything that we're doing. Remember, we're taking waste plastic. So these are the plastics that currently they can't be recycled, and they are just their destination is to landfill. And it used to be, if it wasn't going to landfill, it would go off to China. I'm sure we've all seen the news recently that China are now not taking any of our plastics, and therefore those plastics are destined for landfill. Now, what happens in those landfill sites is that plastic can often be blown off from that landfill site into our rivers and then ends up in our oceans, which is a major problem. And also there's something called microbeads. These are tiny bits of plastic that actually, in the UK anyway, and places like France, they have now just been banned. But the challenge that we thought we might have is that with our plastics going into an asphalt, we didn't want it that when the bitumen were to wear out or to be or any of the aggregates, if there's a pothole that forms, any of the aggregates then being washed into our oceans that contain plastic, that wouldn't work. So all of the polymers that we choose that go into our cake mix of different polymers, they fully melt into the bitumen that still remains within the road mix. So there are no microbeads or plastics even present in any of the asphalt that's produced using our product. As I say, the plastics fully melt in. So it's not like you could get a piece of road and open it up and then see little tiny bits of plastic in it. It's fully melted in and coated around the stone within the bitumen itself. So it's absolutely perfectly safe, and there's no plastics going into our oceans.
So it sounds like this is a very innovative idea, and it serves two purposes: cutting down on waste plastic and creating stronger pothole repairs. This is definitely something to keep an eye on, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how widespread McCreeber's work becomes over the next few years. And this is also a very good example of a private company being able to create a solution that councils and the government would not be easily able to, because their budgets have to be stretched in so many different directions, and they can't be as focused on creating solutions to these kinds of problems. And that's all for this episode. Be sure to join me in a fortnight's time for more from around the Northeast. Until then, I'm Oliver Ralph, and this is The Moment.